Yan na, kamusta kayo dyan? Kamusta kayo dyan? Sorry, kakatapos ko lang isa pang interview ukol sa Pilipinas with international media, ukol sa foreign policy natin. Tsaka medyo puyat tayo kahapon kasi ang daming drama nangyayari. Nako po, yung mga kaibigan natin hanggang 2-3 a.m. ang pinag-usapan. Yung Pulse Asia, pinag-usapan yung demographics, yung sampling methods, yung methodologies. Away here, away dyan. Ayan tuloy, medyo na nagpuyat tayo. Gusto ko pa naman magpahinga ng maagang haba ng araw natin kahapon, di ba? Pero yon. So, kamusta kayo dyan, mga ating mga kaibigan, mga ka-meta, ka-Pacman, ka-Antman, ka-Isco, yan, ka-Kampink, yan. Kamusta kayo dyan, mga GMRC friendships, mga ka-Andrew E. Yan, mamaya ipasok natin ulit sa ka-Andrew E. Dami nagka-comment dyan, Sir, gwapo mo pala pag seryoso ka, walang ya. Or sir, ang gwapo mo pala kung wala kang adlibs. Ayam tayo eh. Alam mo, kung gusto niyo walang adlib version ko, panoorin niyo mga interview ko sa mga sa mga media, okay? Doon, wala na adlib. Boom, diretso na. 4 minutes, 2 minutes, boom, boom, boom. Pinopost ko naman yung iba dyan eh. Tingnan niyo sa Twitter ko, sa mga YouTube ko, yung mga others, pinopost ko naman. So if you want that version of me, the serious, professorial, analyst, whatever version, bahala kayo dyan. Mahanap niyo yan sa TV and all of that, okay? I-google niyo lang yan. Just type, Hey Darian CNN, Hey Darian BBC, Hey Darian Al Jazeera, whatever. Put any major channels there, ay lalabas yung mga videos ko, mga interviews ko, alright? So yon, wag na kayo magreklamo kung marami akong adlib dito kasi nga, ito ay isang dialogical process. Katulad nga ng reflection namin ng isang araw, this is parang katulad ito ng agora. No? Alam niyo yung agora, classroom ha? Classroom. Agora po, ito yung marketplace, ito yung parang ito yung El Pueblo, ito yung lugar, ito yung town square, kumbaga, ng mga ancient Athenians, kung saan nagkakaroon ng debate sa mga others. And of course, let me also, before we go into our discussion today, naka bullet points lahat dito, let me say, once again, heartfelt, say it from my heart, okay, Eid al-Fitr Mubarak to our Muslim brothers and sisters. God bless you. I know you had a very special month during the Ramadan, the fasting. Fasting is no joke. Waking up early in the morning, prayers, then eating early before dawn, and then no drinking, no eating until all the way, until sunset. So, the Maghrib, no? Prayers. I mean, and doing it not only one day, but for a whole month. Grabe yung talagang commitment, religious commitment na ating mga kapatid, no? And of course, let's not forget, we're all talking about the children of Abraham here, no? So from our Jewish brothers and sisters to Christians to Muslim, all of them, all are children of Abraham. All right? Okay, wag natin kalimutan yan. Now, I don't want to get into theological debates here. That's beyond our meta. But yun lang. Gusto kong sabihin, Eid al-Fitr Mubarak. God bless you. And God bless the Philippines, no? So, eto so quickly, let me signpost. So, pag-usapan natin yung Pulse Asia at yung mga criticism sa Pulse Asia. Very quickly, I'll go through that. Second, I'll talk about something very important because this is related. Related lahat yan, ha? Related lahat yan. Yung advent na tinatawag na reactionary middle class. Right? We have termed it different. Reactionary middle class, authoritarian middle class, ayan. At if you wanna really see a best analysis of that globally, hindi lang sa Pilipinas, sa mga others, please basahin yung libro ni Professor Walden Bello, who, by the way, is also running for the vice presidency. Alright? Ito yung book niya, no? Counter-Revolution. Nako po. Ito po, The Global Rise of the Far Right. Dito, ina-analyze ng role ng reactionary middle class sa rise ng far-right figures. From Bolsonaro in Brazil, Narendra Modi in India, Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Turkey. Alright? So on and so forth. Pilipinas, of course, Duterte. Right? So, that's very, very important. Pwede ko pa isama dyan si Viktor Orban of Hungary. Pwede ko isama si Prabowo Subianto, most likely will be the next president of Indonesia if current trend lines hold, no? Ayan, shout out dyan kay Mauhil. Adora, ayan. Ito okay. So, ano na? Okay. Una-una, balikan ko yung ginawa kong Meta 2 kahapon. Ayan na yung mga trolls ko. Oy, dance. Mag-troll-troll dyan Etong sa, kilala ko talaga mga modus operandi ng mga vloggers, trolls na yan eh. Talagang farm operations na naman tayo dyan ah. Coordinated na coordinate. Yung isa pang dahilan na medyo awake tayo kagabi is biglang, ay, kino-quote tayo na naman ng kino-quote. Yung tweet ko dyan na sinabi ko, kung sana magandang strategy early on pa lang, edi with all of the assets and when all of the strengths that LENI, her volunteers and celebrities and endorsers bring to the table, di sana hindi siya in a habol mode. In any survey, hindi lang pulsation, in any survey. Right? Yun ang sinabi ko. Tuloy, eto na naman, tinitwist na naman ng, walang iya talaga mga junk food vloggers na yan, tinitwist na naman yung sinasabi natin. Right? So they're turning me against you. Char. As if naman. Anyone who's familiar with me knows na criticize ko lahat ng kampo dito. Alright? I'm sorry. Alam ko yung mga junk food vloggers dyan na alam mo naman bayaran naman talaga na isa lang kinikriticize nilang side. Kahit mga yan, alam nila, I criticize all sides. And yes, I even use the word dilawan. And yes, hindi ko nakalimutan ginawa ng mga ibang dilawan troll sa akin noong 2019. Yes, alam ko yan. Except, sorry, you cannot out-prose me. Okay? I'm sorry. At palaban ako. Alright? Pa-English kayo dyan, excuse me. I mean, excuse me. Excuse me? Hindi niyo ako ma-English dyan. Okay? Gusto niyo mga Le Français pa tayo. Okay. Alright. Okay. So, yan. Ayan. So, malamang naman, of course, yung kabila naman, regular customers. Talagang 2015-16 pa lang, tinitroll na ako. Nako, walang hiya talaga. Itong mga vloggers. I clarified, ang sinasabi ko dito is, maganda sa yung April-March strategy ng nangyari. In fact, let me put it this way, more brutally, no? I think, dahil sa volunteers, talaga nagkaroon ng ganitong surge or ganitong momentum si LENI. I'll be very brutally honest about it. I think this is really the volunteers. This is the people na taos puso ang pagmamahal kay LENI at taos puso ang kanilang paniniwala doon sa agenda na tinutulak ni LENI at yung progressive camp within the pink movement. Alright? Let me be very clear about that. Okay? Kasi tinitwist na naman yung words ko eh. Ayan tayo eh. Siyempre sabi niyo, dapat careful ka. You know, if I'm gonna be careful, then wag na tayo magmeta. Wag na ako mag-tweet. Kasi politika to eh. You have to make a stand. Sometimes you have to call out, you have to speak out. Oh, if I said this thing 2-3 months ago, you could say na I'm just dismissive towards the campaign. Pero nasa last week na tayo at sinasabi ko, kung sana nakinig yung iba sa atin, dun sa ating objective criticism, constructive criticism, di sana hindi sa habol mode ngayon. Alright? Habol mode ngayon. Ngayon, of course, nakita ko, pinagpipiestahan ang Pulse Asia na naman kahapon. Ayan na naman tayo. Tapos nag-Google Scholar na yung isang tumatakbong bilang tuloy pinagtatawanan. Okay. Ano po yung mga kine-question sa... Okay, let me go first to the easier part. One thing na ina-attack dyan sa Pulse Asia is bakit tinanggal yung A and B. Alright. In fact, okay, let me rewind a bit more, no? Don't worry, we'll end on a good note. I have some good things to talk about later on. Kasi ayoko ito maging ranting, depressed, Hindi ko trabaho yan na magiging masaya kayo, pero hindi ko rin trabaho dito na magdrama tayo at maging depressed tayo. Hindi ko trabaho yan, alright? We're here to have intelligent discussion. Ito po yung agora natin. This is our virtual agora, alright? We're gonna have a proper discussion dito. Okay. And kung nandito lang kayo to have your biases reinforced, I'm sorry, you're gonna get disappointed a lot of times because I'm not here to give you what you want to hear. Alright? Hindi ako desperado sa engagement. Hindi ako katulad ng mga iba dyan na nagkakaroon ng situation na ang tawag namin dyan, audience capture. No? Para magkaroon sila ng engagement or magkakaroon sila ng more subscriptions, stars, unity, kalmado, etc. Naku po, they just feed to their audience what their audience want to hear. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not here to just reinforce your biases, especially if your biases are questionable biases. Okay? Alright. So, may mga may nag-comment dito kahapon. Did you see my comments, sir? How can I unsubscribe here? Obviously, nagra-rant siya. Sa akin mo itatanong paano ka mag-unsubscribe. By the way, may subscription ba tayo sa page na to? Parang wala eh. We don't even, I mean, you just can follow or unfollow, okay? Go ahead. No problem. If you wanna just hear, reinforce yung ignorant biases, bahala kayo. Punta kayo sa bloggers nyo. Each side naman may blogger kayo, di ba? Oh, huwag kayong umasa sa akin. I'm not gonna give you your biases, reinforcement. I'm gonna give you some dose of truth. Alright? Kahit anong kampo ka. Okay, so let's be very clear about if you're looking for quality discussion within, of course, a much more humorous, relaxed environment, kasi hindi naman tayo pa-pretentious dito na professorial lecture, which of course I do in university context, right? Kung gusto lang junk food blogger, punta na kayo dyan. Huwag kayo pumunta sa akin. Okay, so I already gave that warning. Dapat next time meron sa mga video babala, bago manood kay Haydarian, ito po ang caution natin. Hindi kayo dapat pumunta dito pag ang hanap nyo lang ay mga ganun, junk food bloggers, bias reinforcement, cognitive dissonance. Ito. Classroom Classroom. Ito. Speaking of cognitive dissonance. Paki-research yan. Ano ibig sabihin yan? You filter out any evidence that contradicts some of your more core beliefs. Right? So para hindi ka magkakaroon ng cognitive dissonance, you will just reject any fact na hindi tugma doon sa biases mo. Yan. Cognitive dissonance. Please, pag-aralan yan. Ayan, may natutunan naman kayo classroom, mga ka-interregnum, mga ka-path dependency. Kahapon pinag-usapan naman natin path dependency, no? Base doon sa analysis natin ng 1969 elections sa Pilipinas and of course, the Adjustment Bureau. Okay? Today, cognitive dissonance. Sulat natin dito. Cognitive dissonance. So, I know a lot of bloggers take advantage of this. A lot of bloggers, ang trabaho nila dito, not even bloggers, yung mga partisan, openly partisan, mga Fox News style na media. That's what they do, right? So, kunyari, galit ka sa Democrats, punta ka lang dyan sa Fox News para lang puro maririnig mo anti-Democrats. Yan, hater, Democrat hater. Yan, parang ganun. Bloggers are doing that. Next level pa, di ba? Mumurahin, babastusin, ganun yung mga kandidato na ayaw mo. For whatever reason. It could be the most trivial, nonsensical reason. So yan, hindi ko trabaho dito is to help you to avoid cognitive dissonance. Alright? You're gonna get a lot of cognitive dissonance in this meta because I'm gonna give you doses of truth here and there. And by the way, let me be very clear, Let me be very clear. Yeah, cognitive resonance, alright? So, ang hanap nila, cognitive resonance, because they want to avoid cognitive dissonance, right? So, hindi ko trabaho yan. I don't want to be captured by my audience. Hindi, ayaw natin mangyari yan. We want to be independent thinking. Now, of course, hindi ako perfecto. May mga paniniwala ako sa buhay. Diba? Siyempre, may mga mas gusto ako kaysa hindi. Given na yan. But we have to try. That's the thing We have to try. We can never be perfectly objective. Ano tayo, aliens? Hindi naman tayo aliens. Even aliens have their own biases and preferences. Di ba? Nasaan kayo? You get what I'm saying? But we have to try. So this is what I'm gonna give you. I'm not gonna give you cognitive resonance. I'm not gonna give you cognitive resonance. I'm gonna give you doses of truth, even if it risks cognitive dissonance. Alright, mga ka-interregnum? Ayan na, pwede na kayo maging analyst after this, semester, pre-election semester natin. Ay, mamaya, marinig ko, alam mo, ito yung interregnum namin sa relasyon namin ng jowa ko. Kasi ganito yung jowa ko ngayon, kaya kailangan namin ng interregnum. Ayan, pwede nagabit. Or, sana nung araw na yun, hindi kami pumunta sa Tagaytay, tuloy nagkaroon kami ng path dependency dun sa relationship namin. It shaped the range of choices that we could face in the future. Di ba? Pwede nyo gamitin lahat yan Pwede nyo gamitin yung mga tinuturo ko sa hugot sa buhay. But it's a love life. Or, ayoko marinig yung mga complaints mo. Magkakaroon tayo ng cognitive dissonance dito sa relasyon natin. Kailangan na malakas yung ating paniniwala sa ating pagmamahal. Ayan. See? Useful yan. Interregnum sa relasyon. Ibig sabihin yan, tayo. Anong tawag doon? Oh my God. Ano yung mag-break kayo ng sandali lang just to take some time off? Ganon. Ang term nyo dapat dyan, interregnum. Yung parang kunya, pagod na kayo sa isa drama nyo. Let's have an interregnum. Alright? Okay? Ano yung natin dyan? Ano yung term doon? Ano yun? Parang cool off. Yun, cool off. Yun. Kahit sa cool off, sabi niyo interregnum ang kailangan ko sa relasyon niyan. Sabi ng jowa niya, sabi ako yung interregnum niyan. Ayan, okay, Darian na yan. Walang yan, tinuturuan kami ng mga hugot lines, pero medyo Latin terms nang ginagamit. Ayan tayo. Ayan. Okay ha, ayoko nang magkaroon tayo ng path dependency dito. Okay. Kasi sabi nyo, ayoko tong ube flavor kasi hindi ito tugma sa median voters. Ayan, okay. Okay, classroom ha. Ayan, mga ka-cool off. Mga team cool off, GMRC. Okay, pag-usapan natin ng Pulse Asia. Okay, now, we're done. I did the caveats, okay? Uulitin ko na naman next time yan. Pag may mga pasaway na naman dyan, ha? Uulitin ko yan. Let's go to Pulse Asia. So one criticism I keep on hearing from some people who should know better is that, ba't di sinama yung A and B? Ganun. Okay, yeah, that's kind of weird because dati sinama, tapos ngayon sinasabi hindi sila pwede isama, may pandemic naman yung isang year din, di ba? Okay, gets ko yan. Gets ko yung some critic of the logistics argument. But, let's get the facts right. Ano po yung percentage ng Class A, B sa buong voters demographic natin? Alright? Alam natin yung D po ay 65 to 70%, E po ay around 15%, no? 15% or so to 20%, depending on how, kasi iba eh. By the way, iba yung cut-off lines na ginagamit ng, for instance, yung government statistics authorities dun sa PCA, no? Maybe compared sa Pulse Asia. So we have to also do that. Walang one-to-one correspondence. But, and C is around what? 5, 6, 7%, right? So, your A and B, yung mga kaibigan natin dyan, Das Marinas, mga Forbes, kamusta naman kayo dyan? Dude Paratol, Chung bro, where's your car Ferrari bro? Let's go to Ibiza. Yan, yung mga kaibigan natin yan. Ayan, tuloy na nasipon tayo, pagod tayo, puyat tayo. Ayan. Mga ka-interregnum, ano po yung percentage nila? Assuming they even bother to vote. Lalo na yung mga A, na napakayaman. Yung mga friendships natin dyan. Jet setters, rich people, Ferrari people, Farmali style. Yan. Yan, yung mga Farmali, A na yung mga yan. Dami Lamborghini eh. Kitang-kita mo parating sa BGC. Dami Lamborghini, may orange pa dyan. Yan. Ilang percent sila? 2? 3? 1? Okay, I saw a number as low as 1%. Okay? Let's be generous, let's say 3%. Okay? Let's say 3% yung A and B. Okay? Nang buong vote. Okay. Now, we're doing this step by step. Sabihin natin, lahat ng 3% na yan, which is a really, really questionable assumption, really, really big call, ay kay LENI. Okay, sabihin natin yan. Sabihin ni Zadi, na lahat ng A and B, lahat ng Dasma, Forbes, yung mga rich kids, mga ano, sige lahat kay LENI, lahat ayaw kay BBM, ayaw kay Isko, GMRC, Pacman, so Antman, ayan yan. So lahat yan LENI, which is, I'm not sure about that. Even with that, ilang percentage lang akit yung numbers ni LENI? Alright? Okay. I'm just telling you. I'm not, deduce that for yourself. Alright? I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just saying. Right? Tapos meron pa isa pang question na. Ito. Tapos meron na, what about parang hindi tugma yung numbers? Ito, may narinig naman tayo ito kanina. Nasaan na naman to mga pasaway? Ay, andyan pala dun sa phone ko na yan. Naninig ko niya, yung dating isang statistician, ang issue naman niya, yung youth representation numbers and all. Again, the idea is that if properly yung sampling method sa youth representation ay tama, edi automatically, Frances, hindi necessarily yung PCA ang gagamitin na reference point ng ibang groups, right? But then again, can we go back again? Ilan percentage pong A and B, right? Let's say even 5%, alright? Which is not the case. Sobrang exaggerated yan. Lahat ba yan kay LENI? Which brings me to the next point. Yung sinasabi ng isa pang statistician, yung representation of the youth. Na, so ang ginawa niya, young with higher education attainment, so kung maging pro-LENI yan, ito yung lalabas. So maging ahead si LENI. But, again, You're making a very big leap of assumption there. I would rather say presumptuous leap there, right? Sorry about that. You're assuming people with higher education and younger people are automatically not with BBM or against BBM or with LENI. Again, that's a big assumption that is not qualitatively necessarily backed up. That's a very big assumption. You can come up with any numbers adjusted survey if you change the assumptions. But the assumptions have to be backed up by evidence and studies, right? Now, walang iya. Pag ginamit na naman tong video ako ng yung mga troll farms na naman para i-twist, walang iya. Ganun naman gagawin nila. Ang ganda ng explanation natin. We contextualize, we paste everything, tapos isi-splice nila and then they make it look as if ganun. Walang iya talaga. Okay. Ano ang gagawin ko? Ganun talagang mundo natin eh. What can I do? Ayan na, napipikon na. Ito. Nasaan na tayo? Ito. I want to bring out some numbers. By the way, may nagsabi na ba't di natin pinag-usapan ang... Hindi, gusto ko kasi ilabas yung exit poll. Okay? Check niyo yung exit poll ng 2016 elections. Tignan nyo, si Digong, ang pinakamataas na proportional ng support base niya, ABC. And I would say, because C is the dominant one, it's really C. So the lower middle class, new middle class, rising middle class, ay napakamalaking support kay Digong noong 2016. And I won't be surprised, this has been the case through and through. And we can actually see that in a lot of surveys. Now, my problem is that how can I cite some of the surveys? Question niya naman yung survey. But yung exit poll naman siguro ay hindi dinoktor, di ba? Kamusta naman, di ba, yung arguments natin? Kita natin doon yung pinakamataas na proportional support kay Digong ay actually yung middle class. Proportional, of course, maliit yung population ng middle class. But pinakamataas, lampas sa 40%. Remember, Digong got under 40% of the votes. But in the ABC, which is mostly C, kasi yung A naman sa gated community, paano mo naman yan? He was more than 40%. So he got above average, for his own average, support sa middle class. Which brings me to my next point. Because then again, yun nga marami tayong mga economy statistician friends who are making a big leap in sociological presuppositions. But if nag-sociology kayo na mabuti, kung nag-polsci kayo na mabuti, pinag-aralan yung mga sinusulat namin, ayan, I'm not gonna cite myself na, okay? I'm not gonna cite myself. Because medyo naman feeling masyado. But let me show myself, charot. Ito na naman. Alam mo, sorry, yung mga terminologies na pick up namin sa Diliman, sa mga ating mga kaibigan dyan. Alright, so for instance, I've also touched on this issue, but before me, there were other scholars. So ito, for instance, ito yung sinulat ko sa Cambridge University Press, penal populism. I have a new one also with Cambridge University Press, subaltern populism. Alam mo, mahilig naman tayo gumawa tayo ng mga categories and all. Pinag-usapan ko itong role ng what you can call reactionary middle class. And sabi ko nga, the best guy who has made a global survey of that in recent years is no one but Professor Walden Bello, who, by the way, is also running for vice presidency. Alright? Okay, ito yung book niya, ha? Basahin niyo yan. Hindi lang ito sa Pilipinas, ha? This is a global phenomenon. Alright, this is a global phenomenon happening in Brazil, in India, etc. Kung saan, yung mga tatay nila, actually yung support base marami sa kanila, ay middle class or lower middle class. Now, so I've been working with that assumption for quite some time. Alright? For quite some time. Lalo yung C, na medyo pro-Digong and by extension pro-BBM. Because it's a similar universe. Remember yung Venn diagram pinag-usapan natin? Ang laki po ng overlap ng ideological orientation and voter base. So kung ito yung Digong world, DDS world, ito yung BBM world, ang laki po, halos ganito yung overlap nila. No? So you can make a presupposition that the same C class that was very, very behind President Digong will be very much also rallying behind Bongbong Marcos. In fact, you can also look at the exit polls of Bongbong Marcos in 2016 to also see what I'm talking about. But the Digong one was the interesting one because I see a lot of the Digong one has been transferred to BBM via Sara Duterte. All right? So let's be very clear about that. This is not only LENI going against BBM. LENI is going against BBM with Sara's votes. Because hindi na tumakbo, diba, si Sara. So yung 30 points ni Sara, pumunta kay BBM. Tapos kumuha pa siya kay Isko. So Isko was around 15 points, now down to what? 7, 6, 5, 4, whatever. So kinuha rin niya kay Isko yan, diba? So, essentially, this is what LENI is up against. So this brings me to the next point. Because what is quite interesting here is now I'm seeing a series of new studies, especially by this very fascinating, interesting sociologist, a former journalist, civil society guy, si Professor Mark Garrido. So si Dr. Garrido has done very interesting research in recent years, and I've been reading his works to kind of refine and fine-tune also my analysis of the middle class and upper middle class. Dahil po siya ay may... Ito kasi, what sociologists do is they have ethnographic studies. Right? So pupunta sila sa community, they stay in the community, they talk to them, they have extensive interviews. Ito po yung ginagawa ng sociologists. Alright? Wala yan sa Google Trend. Hindi nag-ethnographic ang Google Trend. Alright? Walang yan. Okay. Wala na. Whew. Nakaka-distract yung mga ano nyo dyan. Okay, so ito, punta ka tayo kay Mark Garrido because I think he has some very interesting book. And he actually, so Mark Garrido actually had a very interesting book just the other year, Patchwork City, about Manila. Pakita ko sa inyo, ha. Guys, we're trying to do this in a very civilized way, okay? Hindi ako magpakyut dito, hindi ako magpa-blogger. I'm very serious because this is a very serious discussion. So ito po, for those who want, I'll post this later on. Ito po yung book ni Dr. Garrido, no? Patchwork City. Ito po yung basit sa kanyang ethnographic studies across the years, no? Studying class, space, politics in Metro Manila. So napuntahan niya yung mga middle class communities, napuntahan niya yung mga slum areas. So marami na po siyang nakausap. So I trust this sociologist a lot because they do ethnographic studies. And aminado ako, my ethnographic study is nowhere close to these people. If you can even call what I'm doing, you know. But I'm proud of what I'm doing because I also have a lot of exposure, right? You know, thank God I had the opportunity to talk to a lot of leaders. And then sometimes medyo nakikilala tayo kasi vlogger tayo, di ba? So I can easily talk to people anywhere, any class, whatever, dito sa Manila, outside, etc. But these people have done systematic ethnographic studies. These are sociologists, right? So one of the latest studies that Dr. Garrido has had, mahusay ang kanyang research. I really like his research because it tracks with some of the works we have done. And the suggestion here, and if Dr. Garrido is hearing me or heard, please correct me if I'm not representing your research properly. But by the way, this is not just your research. I'm triangulating your research with my own research and other works that we have. For instance, if you look at the works of Dean Julay Tihanki, a good friend of ours, my former colleague at LaSalle, and Dr. Mark Thompson, I think sa Hong Kong University ulit, he also discussed this issue, yung C, no, itong new middle class, in a Journal for Democracy piece in 2016 pa lang. Please, wag kayo ma-board sa akin because we have to do this systematically, guys. Please hear me. Please hear me. Alright? Wag kayo, don't fall for this partisan nonsense. Let's do proper analysis. Kasi hindi tayo mag-move forward if we hang on to delusions, if we hang on to wrong assumptions. Yes, may disinformation yung kabila. Totoo yan. Big time. Pero ang panglaban mo, delusion, hindi naman pwede yan, di ba? Okay. So one of the works that Dr. Garrido has had recently, which I really like, is, ilalabas ko ito ha. Now, I reframed it, I call it disciplinary politics, right? Kailangan ko ilabas to ha. So if you go to ResearchGate, actually, you can download some of his works for free. Now he has like 4 or 5 journal articles over the past 2-3 years, I think. So he's definitely working on this. But one thing that I want you guys to really focus on. So I have my notes here. Ito, disciplining democracy. How the upper and middle class in Manila envision democratic order. Ito yung title ng work na yun. Okay, and this is, by the way, peer-reviewed work. Hindi ito yung pinapost lang dyan sa blog or something, ha? Hindi ito Facebook post lang. Ito ay na-research. Ito, ha? Ito. Ilalabas ko to, ha? So this is a published work. Last year lang to, ha? O, ito. Ito, please. Ito, basahin nyo itong mga ganito. A free version of that is available on ResearchGate. You can download it. Okay? Please go there and check other works by Dr. Garrido because he's doing a very good job, I think, of further fleshing this out. Now, ano po yung arguments niya? Right? So let me bring out my notes and I just want to be fair in directly quoting. Sorry, I'm being a little bit scholastic about this, but we have to do that. Sorry, let me take out my glasses. Ayan na. Zadi na. Ito. So, ang pinag-aralan dito is, ang dami niyang informants na pinag-aralan, no? Mga tao, I think hundreds ang pinag-aralan niya. I have to double check this. Na mga tao na who belong to C but also B if not A, right? At marami sa kanila, ang hanap po nila, and I have a version of that is, to quote him, they don't want a dictator, but they want a strong leader. Duly elected who would bring about progress. But how? Alright? So, ito yung sense nila, no? So, ang concern ng mga upper middle class at middle class na yan is disorder as the contradiction between valued rules and disvalued norms, the role of democracy in amplifying disorder, and the need to discipline democracy. Emphasis. The need to discipline democracy or to bring rules and norms into alignment. Now, bakit mahalaga yan? Because if you look at it, President Duterte parating sinasabi, pasaway ang kabila, siya dapat disiplinado. Although, gising na si tatay, andyan na ba? So what they're trying to do is, so ito yung sinabi niya, my data suggests, let me read Dr. Garrido, my data suggests that the upper and middle class are not turning away from democracy per se, but towards they're not turning away from democracy towards authoritarianism, but rather seeking to discipline democracy, right? They see themselves engaged in an effort to work out a practice of democracy more appropriate to their society, right? And then he uses within defining discipline as the internalization of patterns of authority previously experienced as external constraints. Okay, now let me simplify this, okay? Okay, let's put aside all the academic jargon. Simplehin ko sa inyo yan. Okay. I have a better term for this disciplinary politics. I call it Singapore envy. Alright? I call it Singapore envy. So, I actually just gave a lecture on that the other day dun sa isang class ko. I call it Singapore envy. Marami sa ating mga middle class, lalo B and C, yung A kasi sobrang mayaman. So mga na to French Riviera na yung mga yan, diba? Medyo New York, Manhattan, French Riviera, London, mga ganon, Chelsea, mga ganon. Medyo high level mga yan. But B and C, right? Amin natin, andun tayo. Diba? Kasama tayo dyan. C and B, diba? Kasama tayo dyan. Aminin natin. Hindi naman tayo A eh. Kung may mga A dyan na nanonood sa atin, salamat naman dyan. Pakibigay naman ng Unity Stars. Sir, kalmado lang. Huwag tayo magdebate. Unity lang tayo, sir. Unity. Yan, okay. Alright. Okay, I call it Singapore envy for a reason. Marami sa ating middle class ay nakakapagpunta sa Singapore. At yung mga bansang katulad ng Singapore. Which is what? Malinis, maganda, daming towers, napakahusay, and then, authoritarian yung government. Because let's not kid ourselves, Singapore is not a liberal democracy. Some would even question if it's a democracy at all because one party keeps on winning the elections. That's not really a definition of democracy. I would say Malaysia is a bit closer to that, but a nudge more democratic, right? Hong Kong, quite similar to Singapore. Dubai, Doha, Abu Dhabi. So if you look at it, all of these places have something in common, right? They don't have liberal democratic governments or regimes, but they have very malinis, ganda, di ba? So ito yung mga Filipino katulad natin na hindi pa nakapagpunta sa French Riviera, hindi natin ma-afford yung mga ganitong places. But na-afford naman natin to go to Dubai, lalo kung yung Cebu natin, may 1 piso ticket, ayan. Tapos meron tayong mahanap na kaibigan, nakameta dyan, na pwede tayong libre makistay sa bahay nila, ayan. So with 30,000 pesos, probably pwede ka na magpakasyon sa Dubai or Singapore ng ilang araw. Diba? Aminin natin, yung mga grepa style natin, diba? Oh, ayan naman, may nagsabi, democracy in Dubai. Ang democracy po, okay, let me define it to you. This is a Schumpeterian definition. The top political leaders are elected through competitive, popular, and fair elections. Okay? So clearly, hindi na meet yung ganito. Democracy is not anything under the sun. Okay? May very clear definition of minimal democracy. So they don't meet even the definition of a minimal democracy. Right? Now, if you don't want to believe me, check other indices. Democracy Index, Freedom House, so on and so forth. So anyway, okay, wag tayo magbara-bara sa definition ng democracy. Okay. So, etong mga Pilipino na ito, syempre, hindi naman marami sa kanya, hindi naman nakikinig sa meta natin. Hindi naman nag-aral ng itong sinasabi natin na how Asia works. Di ba, guys? Yung classroom, yung book natin natin last time, yung book assignment natin, ito. Hindi naman nila binasa to. So, hindi nila naintindihan na the reason yung mayaman ibang bansa is it has less to do with whether they have an authoritarian leader or not, but more to do with the strength of their state institutions and the optimal nature of their trade and industrial policy. But of course, that's way above the head of most people because they don't bother even to read or even bother to listen to our meta where I simplify all of these issues in the best way possible so that anyone, even though you don't have a technical background, you didn't develop in economics or anything like that, you can still appreciate it. Gets? Boom. Okay, go back to this. So, pansin nyo, meron din tayong version nito sa Pilipinas. Ano po yung closest version natin ng Singapore dito sa Pilipinas? Ano yung closest version natin ng Singapore? Like, halos kamukha niya yung nakikita natin sa Singapore. Right? Anyone? Ginawa ko talagang classroom to ha. What is the closest thing we got to Singapore here in the Philippines? Obviously, Singapore is a city-state. It's a small city, whatever, okay? So, hindi mo naman kumpara sa buong Pilipinas, right? At ridiculous naman na sabihin mo, yung pwede mong gawin sa Singapore na city-state, yung pwede mong gawin sa buong Pilipinas na may rural, urban divide and all of that, right? Ayan, sabi ni Jacob, Davao. Okay, that's an interesting, sige, sabihin ko, Baguio na rin, okay. Ayan, aside from Davao, ano pang, as in Singapore skyscraper, BGC, di ba? Ayan, tama si Ralph. Good, ayan, bonus ka na, Ralph, ah. BGC. Now, kung tignan mo ang BGC, right, it's a private area, right? Lalo dun sa mga shopping and all of that. And dun sa mga private area, may mga rules dyan, diba? This is a private area, no? So there could be a security guard that could come to you, or look at the malls, mga gandang malls, diba? These are places that are not democratically governed because they're private property, right? And most of us are fine with it because, well, if that gives you security and safety and all, then so be it, right? Even though it means a little bit discomfort, pwede i-check ng security guard meron dito. Hindi ka pwede pumasok kung wala kang, I don't know, yung, ano yung tawag doon? Yung tag ng, yung kunyari, yung hash, ano yung tawag doon? Ito na naman, QR code. Yan, QR code ng kunyari ganito or ganyan. Dapat may mask ka, ganyan. Alright? So, it's obviously not a democratic space. It's a private property. Okay? Ay, yung mga nagnanaga, Makati, gano'n, wag natin kalimutan, democratic. Ano yan? Just kidding. No. Singing of our version of singing. So, this is what Mark Garrido actually calls pockets of discipline. I call them little Singapores. Ay, ganda. Ganda. I call them little Singapores. Yan. So Mark Garrido calls them pockets of discipline. I call them little Singapores. And by the way, before I read him, I already had my Singapore theory, right? Singapore envy. I've been saying this for years, right? And in fact, si Garrido, ay ginamit rin niya yung concept ni Foucault, yung heterotopia, no? Yung city within cities, right? A world within world. So, kung makikita mo, ang gulo, BGC napakaganda. Paglabas mo ng BGC, nasa EDSA ka na, or dun sa kabila naman. Naku po, ibang mundo na yan. So, a lot of our upper middle class compatriots, this is their thinking. If meron tayong leader that can give, medyo strict siya dito, like how private properties are handled and all. But if the product is something that we enjoy, there in Rockwell, in BGC, in all of these private properties with security guard, very strict rules, there are many things you cannot do in a private property that you can do in a public space, okay? right? All of these things, then ang buong bansa ay maging maayos. So, these pockets of discipline and their experiences going to places like Dubai and Singapore among others has convinced a growing numbers of people, and makita natin yan sa sociological reports by Mark Garrido and all, that what we need is also a leader, actually, who also brings a degree of discipline and order to the disorder and dysfunction of our democracy. Right? And aminin natin, towards the end of the former reformist liberal administration, ang gulo ng Pilipinas, no? Yung mga tanimbala, di ba, sa NAIA, some could say sabotage, but still, competence naman sana, di ba? Yung traffic na grabe, yung APEC, yung nangyari sa Mama Sapano, all of this was projecting disorder, right? So, that is why in 2016 when Duterte came in and said, I'll give you law and order, I'll give you discipline. That law and order actually click most proportionally with the Filipino middle and upper class. In fact, one of the things that I really found interesting, I'm sorry, I wrote a book on Duterte already, so I had to research all of this. Okay, so I'm saying this already, back of my head lang yan, lahat ng mga datas and all na yan. In fact, interestingly, before Duterte became the president, there was a survey conducted, I think, ito yung nakita ko sa isang column na, I think si Wallace ba yan, nagsulat nun, I'll double check in my book, na site ko yan kung saan nagkaroon ng, there was a survey conducted, I think, in some of the key government agencies, I think Department of Finance, I'm not sure about the Department of Foreign Affairs among others, kung saan a lot of technocrats in the government, si Digong ang pinili. So I think Digong was like 40% or something. Like Mar was distant second or something like that. And then, ngayon, ayaw maniwala sa akin, kausapin niyo yung mga kaibigan niyo na nag-work sa mga kumpanya, yung mga malalaking kumpanya, nagkaroon ng internal voting. And ask them, sinong lumabas na panalo. So this is what I'm saying here. That we are making a big assumption to think that the A and B or the middle class in the Philippines who's supposedly more educated will automatically be more partial, let's say, to LENI. When in fact, there's a lot of sociological evidence and studies and exit polls from 2016 and yun nga, I mean, I can show you also the surveys now that show that too, but you don't want to accept those surveys, so I'll go way back, right? So exit polls, all of this that show that actually a lot of our middle class are turning towards the disciplinarian leader. And why is this relevant when a BBM and Sara are running? It's because there's not only the element of Digong, but let's not forget, yung konsepto ng kailangan ng bansa, ang kailangan talaga ng bansa ay disiplina, ito ay babalik po sa panahon ng martial law. Kay Marcos Sr. galing to Yung kanyang jingle sa martial law kung saan sinasabi niya, sa ikaunlad ng bayan, disiplina ang kailangan. No? So for the nation's progress, discipline is necessary. Ito po yung slogan at the heart of yung bagong lipunan, New Society project ni Ferdinand Marcos. And that propaganda spawned the whole ideological universe, right? Which never went away. It never went away. In fact, what's interesting is in one of Mark Garrido's work, his informants, a lot of them not only remember yung EDSA revolution, but a lot of them actually participated in the EDSA revolution. And yet, they are now more partial to a BBM Duterte kind of administration. Because yun nga, ang basa nila, they are the ones who will bring disiplina sa ating bayan. And I know this is going to sound a little bit controversial, but a part of me suspects that when they say discipline, it doesn't apply to them. They're saying discipline, we need it to the other side. You know, yung ganon na thinking, no? Right? So yon. That's the reality. I will post the studies later on. You can read it on your own. Just forget about the jargons and all. I hate it when social scientists all use jargons. You can simplify your language 10 times better and still it can come off it. Kaya nga love na love ko sila Benedict Anderson, yung mga super good scholars who write in a way that can be understood by anyone. Brilliant scholars, and of course one of the best cited scholars anywhere in human history, right? Mamay na si Foucault, right? Anyway, so that is what I'm saying. Ang issue dito ay hindi edukasyon. Ang issue dito ay hindi memory lang, right? That's a very liberal cliche. The issue dito is nostalgia for that disciplina ideology. We can disagree with that. Because as I said, the secret to success of a lot of our neighbors is not authoritarian leadership. The secret is to having strong state institutions and particularly strong trade and industrial policy. Alright? Okay. So the literature on developmental state is very clear on that. Now, that's why I'm saying the issue is nostalgia for that disciplina ideology, which Duterte brought back very well. And of course, the son of former dictator can even more easily deploy. So yung disciplinarian konsepto ay very interesting. But, this is where it gets interesting. This where it gets interesting, ayan na tayo, matatroll na ako dito, is yung pinakatao na nagsasabi kailangan natin ng disiplina, either directly or indirectly. Kamusta naman? Wait, gising na ba si tatay? Ano na? Okay na? Tapos na yung ano niya. Ang problema kasi dito, and this is where it gets weird, and in fact, Garrido himself, he said it in his work. I like that he emphasized, I like that he said, informants prove capable of holding multiple contradictory positions and moving between them, right? Always you say, oh, so gusto mo si Tatay Digong kasi disciplinarian. Kamusta naman ang discipline ni Tatay, by the way? Kamusta yung managerial skills niya, right? I'm sure you're gonna hear all sorts of rationalization. Now, yung isa naman na gusto ng mga disciplinarian middle class, alright? Or upper middle class. Or upper class even. Kamusta naman yung presidential candidate nyo? Si perfect attendance. Nag-graduate ba yan? Daming pera, hindi pa rin nag-graduate. Baka yung allowance niya ulit sa Oxford, di ba? Ayan. That's where it gets weird, right? It's like, because ito Lee Kuan Yew and his wife, God bless them, they topped yung mga examinations in Singapore before they went and studied in, I think both of them studied in Cambridge, right? Lee Kuan Yew was a brilliant guy. Brilliant. Like, brilliant. Like, I don't agree with a lot of things he says. A lot of them were like, but, politiko naman after all. But the guy was brilliant. Alright? Hindi tamad si Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew worked hard. Lee Kuan Yew was obsessed with public service. Lee Kuan Yew would go street by street by street, check the layout. We have to put trees here, we have to put trees there. Kaya nga yung joke sa kanya ni Mahathir is like, Lee Kuan Yew is a glorified mayor or something like that, right? But ganon si Lee Kuan Yew. Hindi lang napakatalino, napaka-dedicated, napaka-active. Ang tanong, kamusta naman si tatay dyan? Diba? Kamusta naman si perfect attendance? At this is the tragedy. This is the tragedy of Philippine politics. The very people who write on the rhetoric of discipline themselves are not necessarily beacons of personal discipline and achievement. I just have to be brutally honest about that, right? Park Chung-hee, Lee Kuan Yew, Deng Xiaoping, right? Even yung emir ng Dubai, yung first emir, the one who oversaw the transformation of Dubai, no, in the 1970s. Mga masipag na tao yan. Mga tao yan na parati in-improve ang sarili. Hindi yung mga tulog-tulugan midnight nagbibigay ng speech. Hindi ito yung mga palamura na inaawa yung mga kapitbahay, yung mga ibang powers na. Hindi. And in the case of Lee Kuan Yew and all, these guys they graduated, alright, from the top schools in Britain. And they graduated with highest honors. Nag-aral, hindi pasawa, hindi sa... So this is this tragedy that we have in the Philippines, where even the more educated classes and all, a lot of them are so desperate for a disciplinarian leader that they will fall for anyone who just talks about discipline, even if that person doesn't embody the discipline in his own life. Even if that person's personal achievements are incomparable to the achievements of a lot of us as ordinary citizens. Kaya para sa akin, okay, alam ko yung mga ibang mga galit sa akin, Isko Moreno has a better claim to be a Lee Kuan Yew than Duterte or BBM by a mile. Hate me for saying this, but Isko Moreno, even if he didn't have a chance to have a proper education when he was younger, alam natin sitwasyon niya, once he got the chance to have an education, he tried to get the best he could. right? Given all the limitations and all. And in fairness naman kay Isko, hardworking, napaka-proactive na tao yan. Ilang projects ang natapos niya sa Manila in just few years lang. None of this is to excuse yung meltdown na nangyari sa press con. Tama yung sinabi ko, bumaba pa yung numbers niya after that. Oh. Sabi ko, magbabackfire yan eh. Yung some of the choices he made, some of the sayang. But, I would say, confidently, Isko Moreno has 10 times more claim to be the Lee Kuan Yew than perfect attendance, Tatay Times, Oxford Man, na Ant-Man, gusto na tumako. Yeah. And you know I'm saying the truth. This is not, I'm not being partial to Isko here. I'm just saying yung katotohanan dito. Kaya gustong-gusto ko yung mga tao na masipag. You maybe were lucky. You were born into a well-off